For this object, the lampshade would be a revolve, the ring would be a sweep, the top and the bottom would be extrusions, basically circles with triangles cut out of them. This cord can be a sweep. Pay attention to details like the ring around the cord and the way that this lampshade loops around the ring like this. So brought the image in using this sketch picture. I have the origin located at the base here. Here's the master sketch. Again, just kind of tracing the overall elements. I would also make a top master. So this circle here is attached. So sketch a circle. I click on this endpoint here and I say coincident. And now the diameter of this circle is linked to the width of this lamp. The other thing worth mentioning is that this V, I basically just sketched a vertical line down from the top here. Put this at an angle, selected both, and then selected the mirror command. And that's how I got this V. Now, for the boss extrude of the main body, the way that I have this set up is it's a convert entities on the top master. And I selected the V and put in a circular sketch pattern command. And here you can see it automatically selected the middle. If it doesn't, you can delete this point here and select the origin, or the center of the circle. But here it's just a matter of putting in the amount of how many times you want it to go around. Again, this is just a visual judge. But I'm just going to exit out of that. And here, what it looks like is it's quite messy when you do it. You don't need to trim any of this away. Just when you load the boss command, go to selected contours here and just click in the middle. And then what I did is I just extruded this all the way. You could set blind, but I just set up to vertex. It's in our master sketch. We can click this endpoint and have it go all the way through. Of course, we need to cut that middle portion out. The lampshade is a revolve. I created a sketch here. The one thing to note about this sketch is that I set this arc and this arc to be concentric. It is the equivalent of parallel, but in a circle. So yeah, that's how I created that. And only did halves because we're going to mirror it. The sweep here, it's two new sketches. One is copying the ring from the master. The other is a new circle sketch that I did on the right plane. And so, I can sketch it out in space. Then you can select the center of this circle and then the center of like the ring from the master and say pierce. That's the option you want. And we can, play with this size, exit that sketch. And then, yeah, when I loaded the sweep command, right, we select the little circle as the train and then the big ring circle as the track and let that go all the way around. Now, the next part I want to talk about is this little loop that goes around the ring. And now the way that I constructed this is I created a sketch on this bottom face of the lampshade. I can do that because it's flat. And in this sketch, I did something new that we haven't done before. I'm editing the sketch now, but I'll just show you how I set it up. Is under convert entities, there's another option here called intersection curve. And what this does is it basically takes a slice of whatever 3D body you select. So we're sketching on this plane, this piece of paper, and I'm selecting this face here. And when I check this box, it should give it to us. It's not, oh, it's giving it to us on this side. That's weird. I don't know why it's doing that. Let's try it again. Now, if that happens, the solution is to just make this sweep not go all the way around. So again, I'm in the sketch. I'm going to select intersection curve and click on this and check it. Oh, it gave it to us on both sides. Okay, yeah. Well, that's good. So I'm going to delete this over here. We only want this one. And what I did is I selected this. I set it to be for construction, and then I just gave it a very small offset for like the material thickness to go around this ring. Is the way that I see that. But again, I'm going to just exit it out because that's what I already have. Now for the track, what I did is I just literally copied this part of the shade. So from this sketch, I copied this arc here. And then I swept it up and along here. Now I put in a fillet on the side. That seems to fix it. Maybe a more proper way for this kind of shape, if you have more time, a more appropriate way would be to like sketch this out and set these to be tangent, this line and this to be tangent to each other. And maybe, what is it, horizontal? Nope, vertical. No, sorry, horizontal in this orientation. Just, this would probably be more realistic of what it's actually like. So that's how I would do that. But I mean, a quick solution could be this fillet, just as I'm showing here. I mean, again, what I just showed you is more ideal. And then last but not least, you want to make sure you shell out the shade here. And that's loading the shell command from the feature tree. I guess I can show you that from scratch. And we just select both of these faces, probably the top two. There's a bit of like funny things going on up here. The way to solve that would maybe to have the sweep just go a little bit further. So like this sweep here, to drag this endpoint further and like cut it away to match better what's being shown in the image. That would be the proper way to do that. But yeah, by putting on this this shell command, now it looks thin and it's a little bit more realistic. The main part of this lamp would be a revolve, but there are some unique aspects of it, which is mainly this cord and the switch that are down here in the back. And this would be a sweep, and we can talk about this. So as far as the setup goes, again, bring in the image in the first sketch, similar to what we did with the bottle, and then tracing this for the master. And you'll notice that I'm sketching the switch on this master sketch here. The lamp's basically revolved. So yeah, so now with the switch, I'm basically just pulling the shape and extruding it. You may want to consider, depending on your interpretation of this shape, from a top view, I'm going to turn perspective off and make sure lines are on. From a top view, you may want to like cut in arcs on either side here to give this a bit of curvature on the front and back. You can do that by like, you know, completing a shape like this. But again, that's your judgment. I think that would help. So here I'm throwing some fillets on here. Now a couple of things. So firstly, I'm extruding the switch, which again is just from this master sketch. I'm putting some fillets on it. Now depending on the angle of the switch, this doesn't look real. The bodies are crashing into each other. So a simple solution is to create a sketch on this face. We can do that because it's flat. And what I did with that sketch is I just simply selected the offset entities command and on the face. So here I am in the sketch, I'm on the face, I can select offset entities. I think I set this to 0.02. But again, I'm just judging by eye. There's no proper scale here. And that's what I did. And then for the cut command, it's set here to be mid-plane, basically just enough to cut into this body. We don't want to cut out of the bottom because there's a chance we might see that. And then again, for as far as like what we want to cut, here under feature scope, you want to make sure that you're only selecting this body. So you actually want to manually select this, because if you don't, you might accidentally cut that switch away as well. Now the final thing that I have here is from the master, there's this, or at least the final thing for the switch, is this part line, which we can see here in the image. It's kind of faint. Is we can basically take a new front plane sketch. I believe this ends up, it looks like this ends up getting used somewhere else. But I copy this over, convert entities. And then here I load the split command, but you can see it's used here. And basically what this looks like is, let's see, sketch 7. What happened to sketch 7? Oh, okay, it's in here. It's just a little bit higher up. Is I select that sketch, and then you want to click in one of the, you want to click in this Here, let me load this from scratch so it's a bit more clear. I load the split command. For the trim tool, I select that copied sketch, and then you want to click in this box, and then just click on one of these and check this. And then now we have this split into two bodies. I'm just going to suppress that. And then basically I just put some fillets on here just so we can see what it looks like as a part line. Obviously there'd be fillets on the top and bottom too. All right, the next part is this chord. And what I want to show is how I have this set up. So I'm going to show both of these, and then I'm just going to split this out so we can look at what it looked like initially. So here you can see I originally planned this right from the top. So here, like, I traced the chord with a spline tool. That's this sketch. And then from a top view, I traced like kind of the path the chord might actually take. It would come out at the back and curve away to the side. And what we do is we use a command to combine the two. Now it's really critical that both of these endpoints end above the origin. If this is a bit short, then the chord will start further back. And here, even though this current yellow line goes all the way to the left, it will end where this point is. So just be aware of that. That's how this combine command works. So the combine command that I'm referencing is under surfaces and under curves. If a solid body is like a piece of clay, a surface is like a piece of paper, a curve is like a piece of string. So what we want in the curve here is project curve, and here sketch on sketch is suggested, and we want to project this curve onto this curve, or this sketch onto this sketch rather. And you can see basically it takes this like wave and puts it along this curve here. And we would click the green check. But that's how this was created. And you can see it shows as this blue thing. If for some reason you don't see it, you want to go to View, Hide Show, and make sure that Curves is pressed down. And what we do is we then use this as a sweep. So what I did, I can split this sweep out. We can show this sketch again, split this out. And here, because it's on the origin, I created a slot shape or racetrack shape. So I use this tool here. Obviously a little bit more careful and considered than I just did, but this center is in the middle. You can see it's centered on the curve there. I then basically sketched a line, mirrored it to the right to get this V, sketched a new line here to mirror the V down. I mean, I think you can figure this out. Basically, you can make this shape. I'm just interpreting, it looks like the chord is this kind of like, you know, flat chord with two wires going through it. And then what I did is I selected this shape as the train and this blue curve as the track to make this sweep. Now it looks to me like the chord is like twisting somewhat through the, you know, through its path. And typically this defaults to minimum twist, but what I suggest you do is look at this and just play with these options. I don't know which one is best. I'll be honest, I haven't really used these. But you can see if this works. I think specify twist amount. I think it will determine how many times it turns around. I wonder if we hit 360, if that will do anything. Yeah, it looks like it does a full 360-degree twist. So I would play with that. It's looking a bit wonky because of the V. Honestly, I think it's because this is such it's because I have my settings turned way low. But this should render nicely. So just get that twist to something that looks similar to what's going on here. It doesn't have to be exact. And then as far as getting this located, I first just used a move command. So again, that's loaded. It's in the feature commands here. It's move copy bodies. If you don't have it, you can search for it, or it's also up here as a small icon. And I just got it placed closely, a little bit up and a little bit, or way back, and then a little bit up. And then I did a twist command, so rotate, and just dialed in these values. Again, I'm just judging by eye, getting it to look like it's along the chord. Make sure copy is not checked. And then a final move command to just kind of get it in place. It's not perfect, but that's what I would do to get that chord as opposed to trying to build it in place. So this would be a revolve mainly for probably the body and the helmet. The camera is a little bit more complex than one might think. There's just a lot of things and details going on in here. But that can be also done with a revolve, starting with a horizontal sketch. You also want to pick which render you want to do here, or if you want to copy this exact image, that might be kind of cool too. But obviously that's more work to set those four up. I don't mind if you want to pick one of these four. Okay, so the nice thing is, back to this image, is that it has this front view for us to use. So I brought that in as a sketch here. The master sketch is just literally a trace. Now this is what I meant about the camera. Is looking in here, there's like the lens, there's a ring around the lens, there's a bevel and a couple steps. This is sort of my quick interpretation of it. Obviously, maybe slightly more considered look at it, I would encourage. Now I also jumped the gun. I think I did this sketch too soon. I would revolve both of these first before doing this sketch so that the camera's in the right place. So the body is just a simple, if I edit the sketch here, it's just from the master. I just kind of completed it. It doesn't matter because it's under the helmet, and that's a simple revolve. The helmet, if we look at the sketch, it's just two lines or two features. Now, before I loaded the revolve command, it gave me a warning. It's like, hey, your sketch is open. It's not a closed shape. Do you want to close it automatically? I said no. And then when you're in the sketch command, it checks this box for the thin feature. And then it gives, and here you can like put in the value of how thick you want the helmet to be. And then what I did is I copied over this center sketch and just did an extrude cut, kind of like this key shape. And now we have something kind of similar to like this thin helmet coming through. Now, this is what I was saying. This is when I would, at this point, I would create this sketch and get it aligned perfectly. You can see that this is kind of in the wrong place. But what I did is I created a new right plane sketch. I copied this over for the most part. I used the trim tool, T for trim. And I think I basically got rid of all of this stuff. I set this to be for construction. I then copied that over and I revolved this shape. But here we can see the end result here. And like I said, it's not positioned properly. I mean, you can always kind of hack it, you know, move body back. Obviously, now we can't see the eyeball anymore, so I'll just suppress that. But yeah, what I have here, the reason this is red is you can select these out, and this you probably want to do this for key shot, is select like at least the center eye, and then go to face and click on this. Here, I'll just remove appearance so you can see what it looked like initially. So you can right click on this, click on the beach ball, click on the face, and then just change the color. And this way, when you bring it into key shot, you know, you can apply like a higher gloss material to this. And I would maybe separate out a couple of these things for that. You know, put some fillets on here, get it a little bit more refined. This is just a sketch on this face. We can do that because it's flat. So I selected this face and went to sketch. I copied over this circle. That's how I have this. And extruded this just to be a lens. So once it was extruded, I selected it and changed the transparency. I think I did that from the body command here. So yeah, change transparency. That's what it looked like initially. Select this, change transparency. You don't need to do that. It's just for a visualization in SolidWorks. But you can also apply that transparency in KeyShot. So yeah, that's how I would do that. Some of the elements of the chest and stuff, you can look at some of the bottle tutorials if you need a little extra reminders of how that's all done. So this has some elements that, like overall it looks simple, but there are some detail elements that are kind of complex that I'm happy to walk through. This can be revolved. I think it's pretty straightforward. I know you can do that. The main elements that I'm talking about that are tricky is really this right here, and the fact that this indent, it has this nice curve. This indent like runs up a surface like this. So let me show you how I would do those two things. So yeah, the master sketch is really quite simple. It's just this side view. extrude, fillet. So the first thing I did is this center detail. This is going to be a bit of surfacing. Actually, the two details will both be surfacing in a way. So the first thing I did is I put a split line running along the side. So if I edit the sketch, the way that I created this sketch is I basically selected this face, converted entities on it. So I basically want this edge. And I offset this edge by 0.1. And again, don't use my numbers. I'm just judging by eye. It depends at the scale, what you're working at. And what I did to create this is I basically just sketched a line and then T for trim tool and cut this away. Now, the reason I did that is it's basically to create this front feature. We want this to end at some point so that we can have our front feature. It'll make more sense, I think, when I show this. So I basically created this sketch, and then I went to features here and I loaded this split line tool. It's also under surfaces and curves. Here, it's under curves here, split line. Or you can search for it in the search command. And now the way this works is when it's loaded, it loads this sketch, and I selected all these top faces, and the result is it puts this dark line on here. And now this gives us edges to select. It basically creates edges. Now the next step that I did is I sketched a line here, again just judging by eye. This is just on the right plane. And then in the surfaces tab, I went to extrude surface, and it works just like the feature extrude. And it's just a thin line, and I set the distance of how far I want it. And I was basically judging by eye the gap here of how much I want this transition to take place, or how much space I want to leave for this transition. The next thing I did is I loaded loft surface, and I selected this edge and this line. You just want to correct how that goes. And then for start and end constraints, just tangency to face to have a blend from this flat to here. And that's what this looks like. Don't know why I did a surface knit, actually. Oh, I understand. My mistake. So surface knit is a combining of two surfaces. Right now we have this straight and we have this loft. They're both separate. So I went to the surfaces command, I loaded knit surface, and then I just selected both of these, and now they're combined into one. And then using that new created surface, I loaded cut with surface command, and I just basically select this, make sure the arrow is pointing up, and then I just check this box. And was the next step I did. So now we have something that's looking a little bit more similar, but we want to add some thickness to this. So we simply just still in the surfaces tab, go to thicken, select our command here. We want it to go back, down, and in. Now it can only go so far before it crashes into itself because of like this geometry. So I think dialing this down made it work. So depending on how much room for this blend you have, you may need to play with that amounts. And I just had it merge into that. Now the next thing to create is this interior portion. So I use the split line command again. This time I think I created this on the top plane. Let's look at this sketch. Yeah, it's on the top plane. And what I did is on my top plane sketch, I right click on this and I said select tangency, and it selects this entire loop. And I just click on convert entities. Now I don't need all of this. I can just drag select. I only need these ones. I set them to be for construction, and then I did offset entities and move them in. I think it was a really small amount, like 0.02. But again, judge by eye for yourself, like what you think this needs to be. To be more clear, I'm referring to, there's a bit of this like black gap here. So yeah, I'm going to exit out of that. So here we see we have a new split line, and I only have it go up until this point. We might even argue that we shouldn't even have it go here, but it's just, again, the interpretation of it. This next split line I created on this surface. If we were to create it in the same sketch, it would get a little bit distorted here. So because we have a flat face here, we can create a new sketch. And then I just made this arc tangent to this line, and this line straight across the back, and split line on that. So now we basically want to push all of this face inwards. And the way that we do that is we load a command here called offset surface. And I'm selecting these faces. This can be set to 0. And basically just copy, by setting it to 0, it just copies this as a surface. So if I hide this, now we have this sheet of paper that matches that contour. And what we can do is we can take that sheet of paper and do a thicken cut. And again, judging, by eye what you think looks right, we want to make sure we cut down in a way and into this, just like that. Now it's worth mentioning that I'm realizing now that this line here, going all the way around, this probably should be a split at some point. Or like a thin cut, right? Because we need to have this be a separate color. So just consider that. But finally, the last thing to do, here I'm just going to suppress both of these, because I already did them, is to then fillet this inner edge. So yeah, what do I mean? What am I talking about with this thin cut? I guess I mean that from this view, like selecting this tangency, convert entities on that. We can go to features here and go to split. And now it's loaded that sketch here. I'm going to click in this middle body and check this box. And what that does is now you can see it splits it into 2 separate bodies. And now we can put a fillet on like one of these faces and make it smaller. We probably want to do another split around like this inner body as well. Again, based on your interpretation. There might need to be a bit more space and gap here. Like this knife edge is probably too thin. But yeah, there you have it. I think, yeah, just some adjustment around that detail. So this is perhaps the, overall, form-wise, this is perhaps the most complex piece, just because of its softness and the blending through here. So this entire form needs to be built with surfacing. So this would also be beneficial to have like a front view and top view, if possible. The master sketch is roughly mimicking what I see going on here. So it's basically like a soft rounded rectangle. These are mirrored on each other, and these are mirrored left to right. However, these are splines with one endpoint, 2 endpoints, of course, and then this center vertice in the middle here, and just setting this to be coincident to this corner. That's how I set that up. Now what I did is I did like a secondary step of the master, and the reason I did this is so that we can copy over these arcs, these 2 arcs and these 2 splines, trim them, and then cut or apply the large fillet to them. And that allows us then to offset this center face to match this image roughly of what's happening. After doing that, I created, because of its complexity, this needs multiple masters, so this needs a right master sketch. Again, I'm just judging by eye. This needs to be massaged and worked out. But this top arc ends where this face is, and this flat line represents this face. The bottom of this here is a mirror. The straight line, this and this are mirrored on each other. Now I created a couple new planes. I created a new plane here on the front for this face. The way that I have this set up, it's selecting this line and this endpoint. I created a new plane down here for the foot. And it looks like there's a third plane. So now the foot, I created a circle Now this circle is attached to the master. It's a circle on here, right? So I select the center, drag the circle out, I select this and one of the endpoints here and just say coincident. And so now it's fully defined and attached. But I'm going to undo my change so I don't destroy my tree here. The third plane, I'll be honest, I'm forgetting why I did this one. Oh, it's the center of the foot. Yeah, I don't think I ended up using this, but we'll see. Okay, so yeah, everything here is surfaced. So the first thing I did is I took a copy of this sketch and swept it along a path here, I think all the way around to the bottom. So again, if we look at the elements here, here's the first sketch, that's the train, and then here's the track coming all the way around. The next thing I did is on this plane number 2, I created a front face sketch just to close this off. This was simply copying the master and then drawing a line down the middle to get half of it. Now, this took a bit to figure out, and there may be different approaches here, but what I ended up doing is cutting away part of this surface. So yeah, sorry if I'm glossing over some of this stuff. This surface plane is this command here, planar surface. And what it does is it just takes a sketch and it just fills it in to create a sheet of paper in that shape. The next one I loaded is trim surface. And here it's the trim tool is a sketch that I created as an offset of this part of the master. And here you can see it's a 0.8 offset. I think I ended up having, this was like originally back here, and I think this was originally set in, so I had to like drag this out just to make sure this arc completely split this surface. And while I was still in that sketch, I loaded the trim surface command. Standard is correct. Here you want to look at whether it's a keep selections or remove selections. You can toggle back and forth. But in this case, remove selections and selecting this bottom face to cut away. And that's what cut that out. The next thing I did was to loft this portion to half of the foot. So I created half of a foot sketch on this foot plane, plane 1. If I split this out, I can show you some of these steps. So here's this sketch. I load the loft command. I select this edge. And then here for settings, we want it to be tangent to this face because everything's blended. So we're going to say tangency to face and simply leave it at that. And because we have this set up, it works out somewhat close to what that spline ends up being. Now the next thing I did here is I created a new sketch based on the master, this one here, and I just dragged the endpoint, I'll show you the sketch, so that it ends attached to this surface and this surface. Now this is sort of an extra step. I'm realizing, no, never mind. I do think this helps. It may not be necessary, but basically once I had that sketch, I loaded the extrude surface command, and it just works similar to an extrude bodies command, but just with a single line. And basically this gives us a face for this to be tangent. So when it's mirrored, hopefully everything's blended. Now, this is using like all of the surface commands at our disposal. The last thing we do here is using a surface fill, or filled surface. And we're just selecting all these edges and telling it to be tangent. So the only thing in here is this, yeah, there are 2 sketches, I guess. Oh yeah, there's this guide curve in the middle. This, yeah, that might be necessary. So here, let me show you this command from scratch since there's quite a lot going on. So I created a new sketch on the foot plane. I'm actually realizing now there's probably a quicker way to do this. So I'm going to select, no, never mind. I'll do exactly what I did. So okay, new sketch on the foot plane. I'm going to select the circle. I'm going to draw a line from here to here. T for trim out this back. Select this and say for construction. And exit out from this sketch. So now we have an edge here. I just want to hide the foot so I don't accidentally select it. So now what I did is load the filled surface command, and I just go around selecting all these open edges. And now see, all of these say contact. We actually want them to be tangent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select here and hold down Shift. So I select all of them and tell it to be tangent to each other. Now the last one I want to select is this sketch I created, but this can be contact. It doesn't have to be tangent. Now you can see this worked out nicely. If for some reason you're getting a weird blend or thing here, you can pull, I pulled this sketch from my master, this spline that I created that's tangent to the center, and that can be used as a constraint curve if you want. But anyway, I checked this box. And there we have a blend that's pretty close. If we turn off lines, you can start to get a sense. It's not perfect, but I think it will work for the requirements of this project. Again, these kinds of blends are some of the most complex things to do in SolidWorks as far as like organic geometry. So I'm going to just suppress that. Here, I'll show you this one that I have. Like I mentioned, it has a constraint curve in the middle to guide this. Originally, I was getting a bit of a bubble going out this way. So that may happen to you, and that constraint curve fixed it. But yeah, so this surface here was just used for construction. I think I just hid that. We don't need it. I mirrored, what did I mirror? I mirrored this front face to the back. I created, the same way I created this, I created a foot plane, or I copied over the circle sketch and did a surface plane for that. Now the next thing I did is I want to knit this all into one surface. All of these blue lines means they're an edge. So I went to Surface Knit, and then I selected all of these different surfaces, and then just check this box. And now this is all one surface. But again, I'll suppress that. I'm suppressing them because I've already done them. And then I mirrored this over to the side, so now we have a complete body, or like a completely closed shape. And so the last command is to do another knit between these two, and this time we want to check create solid. And that's precisely what I did here. And so you can see here we have 3 surface bodies. The third one is the middle construction one here. And now when we drag this down, because solid body was checked, now we have this as a solid body. And now this becomes a starting point to create all of these other details as needed. All right, so this can be built with extrudes. Depending on how you want to go about the tape, it can be done in one of 2 ways. It could just be a series of extrudes, or it can be a revolve about a horizontal plane going this way, which would be like one command, so to speak. Some new things here, like this could be the dome command, but creating a dimple. So let's just dive right in. This would definitely be an image or an object where if you have orthographic views, it would help. So here's sort of how I set up my master. Again, looking at these concentric rings, just kind of basing it on counting the number of things here. I started to set up a top master here. If I edit this, again, to attempt to do this as one revolve. So the way that I did this is like I'd create a line, and then I'd select the endpoint and select the circle and tell it to pierce. And again, you know, from a top view, this could be set to, you know, match all the ins and outs. Again, judging from the tape, so there's the center, then this orange piece, then the big dip. So that would be like this big dip here. Then to me, this would be the tape. And I don't know, it probably needs more than this. I probably don't have enough circles and lines. But something like this could be revolved. What I mean by not having enough circles and lines is like trying to get in this gap and all that stuff. So again, I guess I'll just show 2 ways to do this. So I'll take the top sketch, copy this over, T for trim out all this stuff. What I mean by the gaps, here, let's see if I can create one relatively easily. You know, trim this out. And now this should give us some nice spaces. I think there was another gap here. So again, trim this out. T for trim, L for line. It's just the most efficient way, I think, to work in SolidWorks. L for line, close this, and now here we can revolve it. And very quickly we have, in one command, something that looks like the main tape roll. The other nice thing with building it this way is you could potentially, if you do like a series of really sharp V's like this, and pattern this, let's do a linear pattern. I think you'd want the spacing to be quite tight. Let's try 0.01. And then you'd want a bunch of them. Basically all the way. Basically what I'm doing is I'm manually creating tape texture. You don't have to do this. It could be done in Keyshot. Now it's going to give us an error. I'm just going to say exit the sketch and rebuild anyway. The reason it's giving us an error is because we no longer have one closed complete shape. We have all these like overlapping lines. I think if we edit this and say selected contours and click in here, then it should work for us. So that's the solution to that. Yeah, total overkill. This will probably break your computer. So I leave this up to you. It might make more sense to do it in Keyshot, or if you do want to do that, you know, this could be a separate revolve cut command and just suppress it while you're working and unsuppress it at the very end. So basically, like, do what I did initially, ignore all of these V's, and do this as a separate revolved cut command, like at the bottom of the tree. You could like end with that, so to speak. All right, the next thing I did here is I just extruded this main body. It looks to me like, you know, on the front plane, I can select this chain and extrude it. Oops, sorry, I have to select the chain and copy it first, and then extrude it. You know, don't merge that result, but filleting that, it'll give us a nice part line here. I think the last thing I just want to show is how to do this dimple. So I'm going to create a sketch on this face. We can because it's flat. I can copy over this circle here. Now I want to show two ways to do this. Or no, I'll just show you the right way. I was going to say there's a right way and a wrong way. I guess it doesn't make sense to show you the wrong way. What I would do is with this sketch, under features, I would load this split command. Just click OK, and then in here, because we were selected on the sketch, it's shown up here. I'm going to click in this box here and just click in the center of the sketch. And what this does is it separates this body out, but there's two bodies here, right? The outside and the inside. And now what we can do is we can apply a dome on this. And again, it's a reverse, it's a kick in, so it's more of a dimple. And we make it a dimple by clicking on this flip here and setting that value to what you think looks right. Now, the reason you want to split it is it gives us a nice crisp edge to the dome, which is how I'm interpreting this. What we can do once it's split is combine the two, and now you can set this edge to be sort of like whatever tight, you know, small fillet you want it to be. If this were to be a split line, then the dimple, it has like a really gentle tangency, and then it then bumps in. That was like the other way I was going to show you. That's not correct. This gives us a crisp edge that we can fill it. The other way gives you kind of like a very soft, pillowy look, where this is more defined. So this is something like this can be like confusing how to start the orientation. I would suggest putting the origin in the center of the earpiece and building the earpiece out and then mirroring the whole device. And I think it'll make more sense when I show you. These can all be sweeps. This wire can be a sweep. The headband can be a sweep. Even this metal object might be part of a sweep to kind of follow this gentle curve. This could probably be a revolve. So here's my master, how we have it set up. So like I said, let me just drag this all the way up. Here you can see this is simply on the right plane, or on the front plane. And like I said, the earpiece is in the center here. I created this top master, and this is all connected to what's going on in here. So like this tangent line like this endpoint and this curve are on top of each other, they're attached, and this is tangent to this here. This piece here is attached with a straight line here. I hope that makes sense. Basically, it's like creating a new line, selecting the circle, and saying coincident. Or sorry, saying pierce. That's how I created those. That way they're attached to each other. So if this master changes, then this revolve will change as well. So that's the start. The next sketch here is the headband. So here we have, so this is on the right plane. And the way that I created this is I looked at the wire here, and it looks like the curvature starts at about this point. So that's why this is a straight line. Then from this straight line, I created an arc that's tangent to it. Here, let me show you again how I created this from scratch. So I created an arc like this. I told it to be tangent. I then created a straight line across here, set this to be for construction. Now this line is perpendicular to this one. And now for these, I mirrored them. And now this is going to be important because we're going to need a center plane here to mirror it about. So it's kind of a weird angle, but I think this will be the easiest way to approach this. I'm going to exit out because I already did all these changes. So here's the plane that I mentioned. Oh no, that's a different plane. Let's see, what was that? What was I doing there? Oh yeah, I was starting to create the headband. Yeah, this plane is for the start of the headband. The other plane I would create, so insert reference geometry plane. I would select this line and this point, and tell it to be perpendicular to this line. Right, so this line across the arc, setting to perpendicular, and then the coincident to this center here. And what this plane will do, this will be the part we mirror about. So if we start to build some of this out from a top plane, I can copy over the top master, and I can go to revolve, whoops, revolve it around the center line. It's confused. I'm going a bit too fast here. It copied over this line, which we don't need. And now I can do revolve boss base and select this. And again, this is just a rough, this isn't perfect. The proportion looks way off. This is too skinny to what it actually is. Let's see, like I mentioned on this plane one, I started to create the headband here. Whoops. I want to copy this over. And like I said, so now here I have copies of these two sketches. So I can select this one, sweep. So that's the train. Here's the track. Some of these details can just be extrudes. The end of this could be, we can create a sketch on here, convert entities, and split it in half. I can trim all this away. We don't need it. We do want to make sure, when we trim that away, it loses that midpoint relationship. So I want to make sure that this is coincident to this point in space, or to the halfway mark. So I'm going to set it to be coincident to this here. Nope, it didn't like that. I'm trying to select this center. There we go, and this, and say coincident. There we go. And then I'm going to do a revolve around here, and only need it to be 180. and then flip it so it's down. And I want to just, it's a quick way to get this terminal end. And let's see, can that revolve? Let's see if we can mirror that revolve about this plane. Yep, that worked. Cool. This here would be a sweep. Now, if we look at this, it looks like this starts to curve away from us a little bit. Again, this part here, this would be just like a short sweep through here. You might have to create a new plane for it. Or you can like sweep it similar to how you swept the headband and just cut it, do an extrude cut command. So it's the only length it needs to be. This sweep here, the way that I would set this up is on the right plane, I would make a sketch that follows this curve. I'm going to set this to be coincident here. But then I would start to follow this curvature. Or actually, yeah, no, sorry. This I stopped this too short. I want this to touch here. Something just like that. Yeah. This, we don't want it to go all the way. I think we're just going to drag this back. So we're setting up two sketches here. That's one. The other sketch I want to set up is on the front plane. So I'm selecting this, Alt-S, to enter a new sketch. And I'm going to select this portion of the wire and exit this sketch. So now I have two sketches here. I'm going to hide all these other ones just so we can look at these. Does that work? And what we're going to do is combine these into one sketch or one curve. So we're going to go to the Surfaces tab here and go to Curves. And what we want is Project Curve. And here's Sketch on Sketch. We're going to select our two sketches. And what this should do for us is here you can see in blue we now have a line that curves up and bends in. And now I'm realizing like I probably have this band sketch in the wrong place. This probably should have been moved in. So yeah, just get your positioning correct. This is all just rough, you know, painting a picture for you on how to do this. If for some reason you don't see the blue sketch, you want to go to View, Hide Show, and make sure Curves is pressed in here. And then simply from this right plane, we're going to create a sketch, set it up here, right? So the center is on the curve, roughly. And now this is simply just, again, an exercise in sweeping. So we're going to load our sweep command, set the circle as the train, set the blue curve as the track. And we don't want to, in this case, we don't want to merge result. And again, I have my spacing all wrong, you know, but I know you can figure that out. But yeah, once that's all done, it's a matter of selecting this middle plane and selecting mirror, and then mirroring these two bodies over. And that should get you pretty close to, obviously, yeah, all these details, but I think those are the challenging aspects of the piece. Yeah, so we have a piece here that's pretty much an extrusion left to right. Got some fillets. It has a beautiful edge that kind of like turns over the front and comes along the top. It has this piece here, which I think is just a bump out extrusion. Of course, we want a cord and this slight knob detail in the back here. We can also talk about maybe how to approach this face. So here's the master sketch, just judging by eye. It's on the right plane. I would copy this over and then extrude this. I think it's wider than it is front to back. One thing that could be done in the sketch is sketching this fillet, or not. It could also be done here. It could be done at this point. Again, don't use my numbers. This is nothing is to scale. I'm just judging purely by eye. but we can get these curves in there. And there already we have pretty much half the clock. Again, my proportion is looking a bit wrong to me. But yeah, so we can create a sketch on this front face. We can do that because it's flat. So I'm going to click on it and then click here, or Alt-S. Alt-N is a quicker way to do this. And then I can select these two, this edge, and convert entities on them. Click for construction. Here I'm going to offset this. And again, what I'm doing is sort of creating this clock face. Straight line here. Create a line on the middle there. I'm going to set this to be for construction. And what I'm going to do is select both of these edges and mirror them. Whoops, sorry. Select both of these edges and then this middle line, and then click on mirror. And here now we can like place where we want this clock face to end up. And then I'll close this off, and what we'll do is just an extrude cut to kind of cut a cavity in here. Yeah, I don't know what depth we want to do. Probably not too deep is what my gut is telling me. Whoops. And then here on this front face again, we're going to create a new sketch. We can copy this over. And here now we're going to do an extrusion. This we can do like 0.1. And this time we don't want to merge it. And basically this will become the screen. We can set this to be, if we go here to the bodies, to be change transparency. And I don't know, I think it may even just need to be like, I think right now I'm thinking we just want a really small gap here. You could split line command to get this clock face. I mean, that could also be, I don't know, it's up to you. You could either do that as a label. If I were to do it in SolidWorks, the reason you might want to do it in SolidWorks is then you can apply an emissive material to it. So I'm going to mirror both of these bodies. I meant to check merge results. There we go. And what I can do, whoops, is we can create a sketch on this face here. And let's see, what is the number? 20. And I think if you uncheck use document font, I think you can load LCD fonts from dafont.com. If that doesn't make sense, let me know. And just change this to be something bigger, like 1 inch. Let's see if this works. There we go. And what I would do here is I would put this in as a split line. So under surfaces and curves, there's a split line command. And that should work. Obviously, it's not centered or anything. But what I would do is I would select all of these faces and set them to be a different color. Obviously, all of these ones too. And then now when you bring this into KeyShot, you can apply like a glowing material to the numbers and get kind of a realistic effect. As far as the chord goes, when I go over Michael's object, I cover the chord there. You can do something similar. Yours is, this is a bit more simple. It's basically just a sweep. And yeah, make sure you extrude the knob back here with some ridges. Something like this is similar to Marissa's here. It's basically a circle with V's cut out of them.